Without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speaker today, Angela Meyers, who works for the Bridges Library System in Wisconsin. And she's going to tell you a bit more about what she does. And then she's going to talk about memory cafes.
Good morning, everybody, and hello from Wisconsin. This is Angela Meyers, and I just want to thank Christy for inviting me to speak to you about our memory cafes and how they could be a good fit for your library. In terms of my background, I started as an adult services librarian doing reference and then adult programming. And then for the last 5.5 years, I've been working at a library system doing a dual role of youth services as well as inclusive services, also known as special needs. So that's where the memory cafes fit into my role, and I'm the coordinator of the memory project here at the Bridges Library System. So that's what I was asked to come and speak to you about. And like Christy said, we'll take questions at the end just so we can consolidate any duplicate questions, that sort of thing. But before we get started on memory cafes, I wanted to give you some facts and figures on Alzheimer's disease just to make sure that we're all on the same page. As I was first getting started in learning about memory cafes and who they were intended for, there were a few terms that I needed clarification on. So I thought I would provide you with some terminology for today's session on memory cafes. Dementia is an umbrella term that Alzheimer's disease falls under. So you'll see that in the graphic on the screen. It can occur due to a variety of conditions, and the most common of which is Alzheimer's disease, accounting for 60 to 80% of cases. We often refer to the person providing care as the caregiver, care partner, or care person. Person living with is an example of using person-first language and is the philosophy of putting individuals before their disability. The basic idea is to use a sentence structure that names the person first and the condition second. For example, people with disabilities rather than disabled people, in order to emphasize that they are people first. Another term that you may hear is families living with, which includes all the family and friends caring for a loved one with dementia. So more than 5 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's disease in the United States. And by 2050, this number could rise as high as 16 million. Alzheimer's disease is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. And every 66 seconds, someone in the United States develops the disease. And by mid-century, this number could rise to 16 million. Between 2017 and 2025, every state across the country is expected to experience an increase of at least 14% in the number of people with Alzheimer's disease due to increases in population of ages 65 and up. Looking at this map of projected prevalence of dementia by state, the West and Southeast are expected to experience the largest percentage increases in people with Alzheimer's between 2017 and 2025. In most people with Alzheimer's, symptoms first appear in their mid-60s, and of those with dementia, 70% are still living in their homes right within the community. This leads me to introducing you to the concept of memory cafes and how they are a perfect fit for libraries. Well, you are welcome to come visit one of our memory cafes in southeastern Wisconsin. I wasn't sure how realistic that would be. We put together a short video to show you a snapshot of what you might see at a memory cafe. And don't worry if you can't hear the sound, it's just music and no spoken words. So I'm gonna go ahead and play the video now. It's just 1 minute. So what is a memory cafe? A social gathering for those who are experiencing early stage dementia, mild memory loss, or mild cognitive impairment, also known as MCI, and a family member or care partner. The cafe is a place to have fun, share experiences, and stay socially connected. Memory cafes have roots in the Netherlands dating back to 1997 and were formed as a way to break through the stigma associated with various forms of dementia. It simply wasn't discussed, and those with the disease and their caregivers were suffering as a result. The concept of memory cafes spread throughout Europe and eventually to the United States. Memory cafes are not respite care. Respite care offers a break to the primary caregiver and is more of a drop-off program. It's also not a support group. We do not sit around and talk about how the disease impacts our lives in a support group setting. I wanted to take a moment and give you the details of what we have here, and that's called the Library Memory Project. And this is what I'm most familiar with in terms of memory cafe offerings. The Library Memory Project is unique to my area, but elements could easily be replicated by your library or in your area. The Library Memory Project is an umbrella term that consists of 3 different groups of 4 to 5 libraries that offer monthly memory cafes on a rotating basis. The first group of 4 libraries to form was called the Lake Country Libraries Memory Project in 2015. The rotation consists of hosting the memory cafe at one library and then it goes to the next location. What is unique about our rotating cafes is that, besides the fact that they rotate, is that the libraries do their best to send a staff member from one library to the next to offer support and assistance. And I'll pause here and let you know that our libraries are not branch libraries, they're independent libraries. So this was a huge deal for us to be able to send a staff member from one library to the other to help in a supporting role. Another group of 4 libraries formed a year later in 2016, and they are called the 4 Points Library Memory Project. A third grouping of libraries started offering memory cafes in 2018, and their project name is Wild Plum. Our project consists of more than just monthly memory cafes, but also educational programs on brain health and wellness and memory screening, which I will touch on later. So what do memory cafes look like? Our memory cafes are 1.5 hours in length with 30 to 45 minutes of programming max. We build in a lot of time for socialization. The structure is definitely looser than most library programs and can take some getting used to. We have to tell ourselves not to overschedule the memory cafes and to be flexible if something needs to change. It's always wise to have an extra activity or 2 handy, just in case the activity you plan doesn't take as long as you expected. While our cafes are advertised as 1.5 hours in length, we like to build in some time before and after to encourage conversation amongst participants and volunteers. The welcome includes general housekeeping and a casual icebreaker so people can get to know one another. A memory cafe at the end of fall may use an icebreaker like, "What are you most looking forward to this winter?" Or perhaps a memory cafe serving ice cream may ask participants to share their favorite flavor of ice cream. Around the time of the closing, you can make a call for announcements. Does anyone have a birthday or anniversary to celebrate? Have you done or went somewhere fun recently? This is a great way to share ideas and learn what good activities are to do with your loved one. So you'll see from our cafe timetable sample, this is just a sample of what a cafe might look like. And here we have 45-minute program time. So you have about another 45 minutes to kind of cushion in other kinds of icebreaker and socialization activities. Since the inception of the Library Memory Project, our libraries have developed their cafes around themes. This is no surprise for librarians. It's not necessary, but it has become a thing that we all look forward to. Programs are either developed and executed by library staff, or in some cases, presenters are brought in to share on a subject of interest, such as old-time radio or paper marbling. A few examples of our favorite memory cafe themes include a one-room schoolhouse, which is pictured to the upper left, Zen tangling, which is like yoga for the mind, and making Valentine's Day cards. The Valentine's Day theme was a favorite because everyone was laughing, talking, and creating. And for once, they were just people having fun, not so-and-so with dementia. The picture on the right shows our participants making Valentine's Day poems using conversation hearts. And let me tell you, this was no easy feat. It included some new ones I had never seen before, like On Fleek, Text Me, and BFF. We had a great time creating poetry and then sharing it with everyone. One couple, married for 60 years, shared their Valentine's Day poem with the group. It was very heartwarming. So who attends memory cafes? Usually the primary caregiver, such as the spouse, but sometimes adult children, grandchildren, or adult nieces and nephews will accompany a loved one with dementia. We've had care partners come alone just to check it out before bringing their loved one to a cafe. In the upper left, we have a picture of 3 generations. Clara, who is the primary caregiver to John, the person with, along with their daughter and granddaughter, attended our poetry and masks program. In the upper right, we have a caregiver that accompanies a person with dementia, and they make a point of coming to almost all of our cafes. In the lower left, we have a not so sneaky wife getting caught stealing ice cream from her husband's dish. And in the lower right, we have Harry, a gentleman with memory loss, along with 2 grandchildren of another participant. The kids had an unexpected day off of school, so they came along to the cafe with mom and grandma. The kids were a much welcomed addition to the Memory Cafe, where the participants were learning how to play Wii bowling. So why offer memory cafes? Research in the UK and the Netherlands show that memory cafe participation reduces social isolation. It provides an enjoyable interaction without stigma, and it acts as an entry point for needed resources and offers access to information. We have observed that our memory cafes have helped reduce social isolation. In fact, some of the care couples that have met at the memory cafes have become friends, getting together for dinner or a show outside of the memory cafes. The picture on the left is of a caregiver and another participant with dementia. The Humane Society came in to do a program about the benefits of adopting animals, and as a surprise, we had a few furry friends in attendance. And the photo on the right shows a group of folks making Valentine's Day cards. There are 2 sets of families here, along with dementia care specialists and from the Aging and Disability Resource Center. Having this resource at the table is invaluable, as he or she can answer questions and provide resources on the spot. Hopefully what you have heard so far has intrigued you, and perhaps you are curious about what it takes to get started. First, you need to determine the need in your community. We had conversations with the local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association and the local Aging and Disability Resource Center to determine if there was a need in our community, and the answer was a resounding yes. In addition to checking with these organizations, I would suggest checking in with your local senior center, assisted living homes, visiting Nurses Association, or other organizations that serve seniors or persons with mild memory loss. You just need to remember that you don't need to be an expert in everything. You just need to know where to find experts in the field. Research memory cafes. There is a website called memorycafedirectory.com, which is a good place to start to see if there are any cafes listed in your area. While it may not include every memory cafe instance, it does list quite a few throughout the country. And if at all possible, visit a memory cafe or talk with a memory cafe facilitator to learn more about what it's like to offer memory cafes. So this is actually a very short video of when our group first went and did our research. So here's a really, really short video. So like I mentioned, we took a road trip to another memory cafe in northern Wisconsin, and it was about an hour and a half north of Milwaukee. And here's what we experienced. There was a greeter at the door to welcome us and show us the way to the meeting room where the cafe was being held. There was a registration table manned by a volunteer or library staff person where we filled out name tags with our first names only. There was a refreshments table manned by a volunteer. There was a peer greeter, which is a person that is either a caregiver or a person with that can help welcome new participants. There was a visiting Nurses Association staff member as the aging specialist and local resource. There was the Memory Cafe coordinator or library staff member who encouraged us to sit with the participants and interact. And we found that wearing the generic "hello, my name is" name tag helps put everyone on the same playing field, and it's something that we implement at our cafes today. And if you were wondering, the theme of the Neenah Public Library Memory Cafe was polka, and yes, we polka danced. So following our visit to the Memory Cafe, we talked about how and when we would start our very own memory cafes. But first, we knew that we needed partners. Partnerships can mean a lot of things. It can mean a business is willing to post your program flyers, your friends of the library group underwriting the cost of your programs, or an organization sending staff to support your program. For us, this is what partnerships look like today. Partnering with the Alzheimer's Association and the Aging and Disability Resource Center is a win-win. You're providing a much-needed program to people living in your community, and the partners can co-promote a program that directly benefits their targeted clientele. We also consider all the member libraries that are part of the Lake Country, Four Points, and Wild Plum Library Memory Project, and also the library systems are partners in this project. So who could your potential partners be? A local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, Aging and Disability Resource Center, senior centers, Visiting Nurses Association, senior living facilities, other libraries, and local businesses. As with many library initiatives, training is key. Pictured here are two staff members at a training experiencing what we call fidgets. We learned that putting some fidgets on the table for the participants can help start conversation or even ease anxiety by having something to manipulate in one's hand. Our memory cafe coordinators were invited to the local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association for a few-hour training where we learned statistics of Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, what's it like to live with dementia, and communications training. Some takeaways from the communications training include speaking calmly and slowly, allowing extra time for a response, making eye contact, and speaking directly to the person with. Most importantly, be patient and use the person's name in conversation. Like, how are you today, John? Staffing can vary from cafe to cafe, but our libraries have found that 1 to 2 library staff, along with 1 to 2 volunteers, makes for an ideal combination. As the coordinator of the overall project, I ask that each participating library assign a primary and secondary contact for the memory cafe. This is important so that staff can take vacation, or if there is staff turnover, there is some continuity in the program. Our libraries have utilized volunteers to assist the day of the memory cafe for refreshments, registration, interaction with participants, taking pictures, setup, and cleanup. And here we have a picture of our volunteers, Dottie and Mary, and they volunteer at the 4 Points Library Memory Project, meaning that they go from location to volunteer. They affectionately call themselves the Meet and Greet Group. I surveyed a few of our libraries in the Library Memory Project to get an estimate of staff time to run a monthly memory cafe. The average time it took per month to plan and execute a memory cafe was 15.83 hours per month. Variance most likely due to the managing the Library Memory Project website and social media presence. We currently have 1 to 2 people from each project assigned to update the project website with upcoming events or past event photos. And like all things, that takes time. What is not included in this spreadsheet is my time as the overall coordinator of the Library Memory Project. I keep communication going amongst the libraries, and I also coordinate 1 to 2 check-in meetings per year per project to talk about what's working or not and to discuss any future plans. And like any other library program, there are physical space considerations. You can host your memory cafes right in your library. If you have a meeting room or out in the stack, you'll see the picture in the upper left. That was our one-room schoolhouse memory cafe. It's held right in the middle of the library. It's actually held right in the quiet area of the library, but they just put a sign up for that hour and a half to say that a memory cafe is in progress. We also have had memory cafes outside. So the one that's pictured in the right is our mindfulness jars, where we made jars with lots of glitter and glue and water. So that was a great one to have outdoors. We also have memory cafes in our community that are held in coffee shop and senior centers. So don't let space deter you from offering memory cafes. There's always a solution. Marketing is such a huge component of our project that I would be remiss if I didn't devote an entire section to our efforts. According to the staff monthly time estimates, updating the flyer for the Memory Cafe only takes about a half hour. This is in part because we have a template for our flyers, so the only items that need changing is the location and theme. It really cuts down on the time that it takes to put together a flyer. We have library van delivery service 5 days a week in our region, which means that we can easily share supplies among the participating libraries. Pictured here is a traveling banner that goes from one location to the next. We also have a traveling tote with registration supplies, including project brochures, name tags, markers, fidgets for the table, and other practical items. The Library Memory Project website encompasses all 3 projects within one umbrella website. That's librarymemoryproject.org. We have a few trained library staff that update the website with new events and postings. If you visit the website, you can click on events, which will give you a better idea of what our libraries are planning for their next few cafes. And past events will provide you with pictures from all of our cafes dating back to February of 2015. If you're interested in reading about the history of our project or viewing any media coverage, you can click on the About tab to learn more. We also maintain a Facebook page for our library memory project, and each of the libraries involved in the project have editing rights to the Facebook page, meaning they can add content and respond to comments if needed. We also do our best to cross-promote each other's memory cafes in our newsletters. So this is an example of one library promoting another cafe in their newsletter. We wrote for and received a $4,600 two-year marketing grant from Bader Philanthropies, which is based here in Milwaukee. A few things that we've done with the marketing grant include creating a marketing plan and a detailed monthly task list. We printed brochures from member libraries to give away freely. We had swag created, like pens with a stylus, Post-it notes, and eyeglass cleaning wipes to give away at resource fairs, farmers markets, or other events. We had team T-shirts printed so that when we walk in the Walk to End Alzheimer's, we're a branded group and also help advertise our memory project. We spent some of the marketing money on Facebook boosts and also website hosting. So have you heard that expression, you get what you pay for? Well, in this case, that's not always true. Some of our favorite memory cafes have come to us at no cost, and you'll likely have access to some of the same resources. Community members have offered to present at our memory cafes and have included one called Herbs for the Senses, where a local gardening enthusiast and library patron came in and we used our senses to experience herbs from the garden. The lavender-infused cupcakes were a huge hit. Old-time radio enthusiasts did a very interesting and interactive talk at one of our memory cafes, and that came at no cost to our member library. We have Spark programs, which connects the museums with local partners in healthy aging, and they provided memory cafes on masks and poetry, the streets of old Milwaukee, and also the beauty of the butterfly. We've also paid some presenters and had a drum circle, a Shakespeare impersonator, and live music. Registration for our memory cafes is all done via Google Sheets. And when I mean registration, I'm talking about the library staff members entering who attended the memory cafes. The persons that are attending the memory cafes typically fill out a paper form when they come into the memory cafe so that we have current contact information. This Google Sheet also allows our partners at the Alzheimer's Association to log in and get attendance figures for their records. The library staff uses tracking attendance for sending out cafe reminders. And if you're curious, the average attendance at our memory cafes is 15.9, which includes the caregiver and person with. And after 88 cafes since 2015, that brings us to a total of 1,398 people who have attended the memory cafes. Continuous communication is essential for rotating nature of a program like memory cafes. Knowing who is on deck and at bat at all times is needed. And for the libraries that have a memory cafe coming up in the next 2 months, they need to start working on getting marketing materials updated and distributed and getting their program details finalized, reminders out, and volunteers lined up. For the library in queue to host, they try to send a library staff member to help staff the memory cafe. But marketing is probably our biggest challenge. Our audience is ever changing, and as a result, our marketing efforts need to be continuous. Also, due to our rotating nature, our libraries are ever vigilant in marketing each and every month to make sure that people are aware of the new location month by month. Staff turnover. We've had a secondary contact in place since the beginning, which has really helped in keeping things run smoothly so that no one is dropping the ball with the memory cafe. And of course, we've had some unforeseen benefits, and those benefits directly outweigh the challenges. We've had partnerships formed, including a new support group at the Milwaukee Public Library that is run by the Alzheimer's Association, but housed at the Milwaukee Public Library. We've had the satisfaction of doing something truly meaningful for those in the community and becoming more aware of the needs of those with dementia and their care partners. And assisting at each other's libraries allows the library staff to see how memory cafes are done at different locations and what works best and what didn't go over that well. And it also helps us get to know staff at other libraries. The extra set of hands and hearts really makes the memory cafes memorable for all involved. I just have a few pieces of advice for all of you if you're going to go forward and start your own memory cafes. Most importantly, keep it social. Make the program scalable. Since you won't be sure how many people are attending, you'll want to make sure that you have enough supplies. Sharing limited supplies can actually become a plus as it brings people together. You'll want to create an educational theme, but try not to make it too academic. You'll want to make sure that your memory cafe is interactive and hands-on. And I always like to tell our libraries that the more you can include the five senses, the better. You'll also want to make sure that you're flexible. So if something isn't going exactly as you planned, be willing to change gears and try something different. You'll also want to make sure that you don't overschedule your memory cafes. So while they are typically an hour and a half in length, you're not going to plan an hour and a half of activities because you're going to want to have some built-in social time. The Drumming Circle Cafe, which is pictured here, was a favorite, and the facilitator did a wonderful job of getting everyone interested and engaged in the program. Participants who had not been active in the past were tapping their toes and smiling the whole time. If you aren't quite ready to start a memory cafe, there are other options to support those living with dementia in your community. There's dementia-friendly staff training. This training is typically 1 hour, and you can have it offered to your library staff. Typically, that is offered through the Alzheimer's Association or your Aging and Disability Resource Center. The training focuses on understanding dementia and taking action to create an environment that is safe, respectful, and welcoming for people living with dementia. You could offer memory screening. This is simple and safe, healthy brain checkup that tests memory and other thinking skills. The memory screening is a series of questions or tasks that takes approximately 10 minutes to complete and can indicate if someone might benefit from a comprehensive medical evaluation. We have found that the memory screens have been very popular at our libraries, especially because people don't mind going to the library for something like this versus going to the doctor's office or to a clinic. Dementia Friends USA is a global movement that is changing the way people think, act, and talk about dementia. It was developed by the Alzheimer's Society in the UK, and the Dementia Friends initiative is underway in the US, and we just launched it in Wisconsin a few weeks ago. By helping everyone in a community understand what dementia is and how it affects people, each of us can make a difference for people touched by dementia. Your library could offer a caregiver support group so that people have a place to go to talk to others that are on the same journey. Your library could also offer educational programs such as brain health, know the 10 signs, care for the caregiver. I would suggest that you check with your local chapter of the Alzheimer's Association to see what types of programs they offer in your community. And last, you could update your library collections to include items on dementia and care for the caregiver. I put together a few sources that you might be interested in checking out if you're going to be pursuing memory cafes. Here is my contact information, and I just had a few other little pieces of information to share, such as being involved in the memory cafes has been one of the most satisfying parts of my career to date. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to either chat those into the chat box now, or you can contact me using the information here on the slide. So thank you for taking time out of your day today to learn how memory cafes and libraries are a perfect fit. And I'll stick around for a while if anyone has any questions or comments.
Any suggestions in overcoming resistance from caregivers in participating?
I guess my suggestion would be to invite the caregivers to attend on their own so that they can see what a memory cafe is like, because oftentimes they're worried about their loved one reacting at a memory cafe. And so this way they can be assured that it's a safe place to bring their loved one and that it's, basically a no judgment zone. So that would be my number one suggestion. Also just kind of explaining that, it's a safe place to come and that, everyone is on the same journey, and that if someone's having a bad day, that's totally fine, and that, they can feel free to leave early, that sort of thing, and come back another time.
We had someone else say that they started a memory cafe, however, they're struggling to get people to attend.
For that one, I would see if there's any local agencies that can help promote your memory cafes. So for us, we have the Alzheimer's Association actually takes our initial registration for the participants. So they call the Alzheimer's Association and register for their very first memory cafe. So that has been a natural fit for us. In terms of the Alzheimer's Association promoting the memory cafes to their clientele. So see if you can get some other people who are already working with those with dementia and their caregivers to spread the word for you. And then also making sure that your description of the memory cafe is clear so that people understand who they're for and so that you get the right fit.
Meredith asks, how many libraries do you need to get started, and can you do it on your own?
You certainly can do it on your own, and actually the library that we visited in Neenah, Wisconsin, they offer a memory cafe every month on their own. So it was just a matter of our libraries are a little bit smaller, so they felt that they couldn't necessarily devote the staff time to offering it every month at each individual location. So that was the reason that our libraries decided to partner. But you certainly could do it on your own if you have the staffing to do so and also the population to support that memory cafe.
We had someone want to reiterate that the programs are for people with dementia or Alzheimer's or memory loss, as well as their caregivers, so they come together.
That's correct. So it's more of a one-on-one or, one-to-many. So we've had multiple generations come where it's, grandma, grandpa, and grandchild, or we've even had, daughter come with dad, that sort of thing. But the goal is that they're having quality time together away from the disease with others that are on the same journey. And like I mentioned before, you're welcome to send me an email or give me a call if you have further questions. And if I don't know the answer, I can always see if I can connect you with someone else. We've been doing them for 3 years, but ours are very unique because we are sharing the memory project and sharing the cafes. But I could always try to connect you with someone that's closer to your situation. Thanks, everyone.